Okay, this is the Earthmaster parts tractor I've been playing around with. I've just been curious whether or not I could actually get this motor running. Guy told me it was a Waukesha 4-cylinder. Not sure because I don't see anything on here to identify it as a Waukesha. And right here on the magneto, it's a Fairbanks Morse magneto, but right down below here it says Hercules. So I'm wondering if this is a 4-cylinder Hercules engine. Well, I put my starter charger on it, and the starter actually runs, so it will turn over. So it's not seized up. And I don't know what he was talking about the starter problem, but I do see the teeth are pretty bad on here, so I can imagine every once in a while it's probably going to not catch. But I should be able to get it crank enough to start if I can get it to start. I put a little fresh fuel in the tank, but wasn't getting any flow. And I decided to take the sediment bowl off, and look in the bottom of that, pretty bad. So I'm going to clean all that out and see if I can't flush the line. Well, this bowl, this glass bowl, has an AC in the bottom of it, embossed into it. I wonder if that stands for AC Delco or Allis-Chalmers. This might be for Allis-Chalmers. Maybe this is off of a Allis-Chalmers Model G, which used to share the same motor as the original motor that was in here, the Continental N62. That bowl also looked like it might not have been original, only because this little piece right here was on there. This little metal cup. Actually, I think that is original. I don't know. Don't really care. I'll see if I spray some carb cleaner up in that orifice there, if I can get some fuel flowing. Alright, when I take the, clean the glass out, when I take the glass off and I open the valve, the fuel flows right out of the tank. There's actually no screen in there, so I don't know why I was thinking I would have to clean it out. But then with the glass on, the valve wide open, it just drips one drip at a time. I'm assuming the reason is that it can't displace the air that's in there, because normally this would be gravity flow right to the bowl of the carburetor. But on this setup right here, they've got it going through this line. They got it going into this fuel pump, this mechanical fuel pump. So when I broke this line open here, a little bit of fuel started to trickle, and more fuel started to flow into there. So I have a feeling that once I get the engine cranking, the pump will take over and actually suck the fuel and the air right out of there. So we'll see what happens. Here's the carburetor. It looks like either a Zenith or a Marvel Schebler, which is, I'm not sure if it's the same model, but it's a similar setup to the one that went on the Continental engine that was in here, which is that it's a updraft carburetor, and it's got this unusual bowl set up here where the bowl is kind of offset to the left of the main venturi here. And the reason for that being important is because on the Continental you got the distributors coming out right here at an angle, and you've got like no clearance between here and the distributor. That's why you can't just slap any old carburetor on those Continentals. One of the reasons. Well, let's see, the choke wire is snapped right here, so the choke cable's junk. And I imagine part of the reason why it's snapped is probably because when I'm turning this, the linkage is moving. I had broken this free trying to turn it, but the choke butterfly doesn't move at all. It's frozen. So I'll spray a little carb cleaner up there and see if I can't break it free. A little bit of carburetor cleaner, and that broke free pretty easily. It's actually way loose, downright sloppy, which means it's gonna want to suck air through the shaft here, but I'm not really concerned about how well it runs. I'm more concerned about whether or not it will run at all. Actually, I'm going to be downright amazed if it runs at all. Alright, now let's talk about the ignition and the electrical system on this thing. The original Earthmaster tractor would have been a 6-volt system, so it would have had a 6-volt starter and a 6-volt ignition coil. This is a magneto ignition, so it's not going to use a battery at all. Matter of fact, once it fires and the engine starts, it pretty much is self-sustaining electrically. So I don't think I really have to worry about whether it's 6 or 12 volt, except for the starter. If this is the original Earthmaster starter, I know it should have had a placard right here. You can actually see the remnants of it right here at this rivet and this rivet. It was either purposely snapped off or rusted off. That would have told us exactly the part number of this starter, so then we would know whether or not it's a 12 or a 6 volt. Unfortunately, I don't have any 6 volt charged batteries ready, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run 12 to it, and I'm just going to make sure I don't crank it for long periods of time. Well, made a couple of revolutions on that start attempt, and it's definitely starting to draw fuel in to that bowl. I don't know, I heard some clicking and clanging in there. I'm not sure what that was. I'm not familiar with what kind of engine sounds there should be coming out of this thing. For all I know, there could be a broken connecting rod in there. Well, I'll give it a second and try it again. Alright, let's see what happens. Oop. Ooh, that's an ugly sound. Try again. I don't know what that noise is. There's definitely a metal on metal sound. Might just be something in here, a clutch assembly. Might not even be internal to the engine. Thinking I might want to pull a spark plug and throw a little starter fluid in there. Cheat a little bit. Well, I was in the process of trying to get this frozen spark plug out. I don't think it's been out in 50 years. And saw gas starting to drip out of the carburetor, so no big surprise there. Float's probably gummed up and sticking. So I shut the fuel off for now. Well, here's what this spark plug looks like. Pretty grungy. You know, whiz it on the wire wheel and see how it looks. Alright, here's the spark plug cleaned up. Good enough for my purposes. I'm going to give it a little squirt of starting fluid, put the plug back in and crank it and see if I get a pop. And I'm going to leave the fuel shut off for now. There should be enough in the bowl that if it really wanted to run, it'll run. Alright, let's see if we can't get something going here. Nothing. More gas spilling out of the carburetor when I do that. That's a good sign. It means it's drawing it up out of the bowl. But no spark. Well, I know like very little about magnetos. I know that basically they use the mechanical motion of the engine to actually generate the spark, almost like a magneto coil on a small lawnmower would. So you don't need a battery or constant voltage fed to it before it actually fires. I know when it's cranking slow, there's I think something called an impulse coil in here that actually will make a click and fire and give it that first initial big spark that it needs for the engine to start. And then once the engine starts and it comes up the RPM, I guess it's acts more like a little generator. I'm not quite sure. But the original key switch is missing, and there's just this toggle switch. And I'd be willing to bet that the way that toggle switch worked, this is the wire that comes from it right here, and it runs right out here, and it's just right here it's broken off. Don't know where the rest of the wire goes. I don't see where wire is attached to this magneto. This right here, screw, looks like it might be an attachment point. Maybe you take that screw out and you put an eye on there, and but that, I don't know. It's got what looks like a rubber gasket around the outside, so I'm thinking that that might be the insulating material. and that's actually the point where the wire would hook on. But I'm also thinking that all this wire would do would be this wire would be grounded out to kill the spark from the magneto, so that the fact that there's no wire attached to this magneto at all would indicate if it was a good operating magneto, it should fire. This is all theory at this point. Well, I guess I'll start with the basics. I'll pull that plug back out, ground the plug, and see whether or not when I crank it, whether I get any spark at all. Well, I cleaned up the side of the spark plug here too to kind of get a ground on it, and still no spark. So I'm going to quit at this point and do a little bit of reading about magnetos.